You might lose occasionally, but you've got to play the game, have a few irons in the fire. If you go well, make a squid in. If you go badly, well, okay, let's manage that. If you're not in there playing the game, you're not going to win.
I think it's an easy thing to say for someone like you and I that maybe have crossed a certain threshold. Whereas if you're starting out and you've got your first $100,000, $200,000 to invest, they're thinking downside, they're thinking risk, for example. And at that point, you can't sugarcoat it that this is a highly emotional decision. Allan Mason, welcome on. Allan, how you doing?
Thank you. And thank you, Aaron. Maybe they follow the crowd off the cliff. Maybe they listen to too many people who don't know the right answers. You need to act. Do not sit on the fence. Do not look back and say, I wish I'd have bought that.
If you're a newer, younger investor into the journey, this is sage wisdom. Your future self will absolutely thank you for taking action and getting into the market. G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast. I want to start with a quote from an author that we're going to interview today. We all want to retire young, make lots of money, and pay less tax. So now that I've got your attention, I'm going to introduce Allan Mason on. Allan Mason has, I walked past the airport and I saw this book and I did happen to get a copy delivered to our office and read it. I've got to tell you, mate, Allan, this is fantastic. I think the way you've explained property investing in here is absolutely bang on. Welcome on, Allan. How you doing?
Thank you. And thank you, Aaron, for that accolade. And it's hard because when you're sitting at the desk writing, you don't know what the audience is how they're going to perceive what you write. And this is my 10th book, and I do tend to write in a way that is a little bit easy to understand. I try to. And accounting, I know most people think about accounting and tax as something that will make you go to sleep.
Yeah.
And reading my book, you think, well, maybe it will cure my insomnia. But in fact, it's not true. And honestly, you have to take charge of your money. You have to take charge of your finances. And if you're in business or working and you don't do that, then at the end of your life, you'll be opening a can of dog food and living off a pension that's a meager, $300 or $400 a week. So it's crazy.
Mate, well, everything you've said there in that nutshell is absolutely, on brand with what we advocate through this podcast, my ethos in business as well. So I feel like, we've got a really strong alignment in terms of your outlook. I think your bullishness around business, mindset, and investing in property as well. So what I want to do is, in terms of introductions, we're talking to an accountant, Kerry Packer's former accountant. You've been in business, I think, for probably close to 40 years, for example, in the accounting trade. So you know your stuff inside out, and now you've kind of transitioned to working with high net worth clients. So you've probably seen your clients go on the journey, probably start here and then put themselves into that upper echelon as well. But very much unpacking this for, I'd say, the common Australian, which is how do we invest in property, how to do it successfully, purely from the lens of an accountant, but also through the eyes of a fellow property investor. And we'll go through your journey step by step. But I want to start off with a question for you, because I'd be putting myself into the listener's seat and going, oh, these are the questions I have for Allan, and go, from all your decades of experience, what do property investors get wrong?
So often I see people buy, they think they're going to have a quick gain, they make a few $100,000 maybe in the first few years, or they don't, and they want to sell. Can I tell you, if I'd have kept every property I owned in my lifetime, I think I'd be talking Harry Triguboff now. I'd be buying his unit that he just sold. It's incredible. So please try not to sell. Try not to be emotional. Look at it as a business. And yes, look, if you haven't got it right, and I've bought a few properties that I haven't got right, so I've sold them and bought something different. And at different parts of your life journey, there'll be different priorities that come to play. As you get older, you've got to look more passive income. As you're younger, you're looking more for tax side of it. So just work with your head, not your heart.
I think that's an easy thing to say for someone like you and I that maybe have crossed a certain threshold, either in life or say in property, for example, where it's like, hey, don't think emotionally. Whereas if you're starting out and you've got your first $200,000 to invest, they're thinking downside, they're thinking risk, for example. And at that point, you can't sugarcoat it that this is a highly emotional decision as opposed to ration, because ration suggests that every Australian should go and buy an investment property because the market will deliver. Probably just have a diversification, so have some shares, put money into super. That's the highly rational side of it. Whereas the emotional side is if we're a couple, we should pay off our home as quickly as possible. We should be investing in blue chip, and there's all these kind of stories that kind of come to the surface. What if it goes wrong? What if the tenants have these damage? And then you can start to see, and I did this with my team, the 85-15 iceberg challenge we did at our conference recently, our team offsite, going emotionally is all the 15% above the surface, and then the 85% is all the emotion under the surface. What if rates rise? What if the tenants have their damage? What if this and what if that? And it's all the fear of the unknowns. And I'll let you kind of pick it up from there.
And can I say, Aaron, that the old scenario, pay off your house first, then buy investment properties, is flawed. It's flawed. I mean, I'll give you a simple example, very simple. And I talk about this in the book many times, and I've lived it.
Yeah.
So I'm not spooking something that is textbook. I'm telling you real life, and throughout the book there are lots and lots of case studies that relate to me or to my clients or what we've done. So in 1971, the average price in Sydney was $18,700. So if in 1971 you bought a house for $18,700, and you're now in 2025, what should you have done? Should you have paid that house off in that 20 years? Mm-hmm. Or should you have gone, no, I'm going to buy my next property 5 years later, my next property 5 years later, 25 years later. And, when we look back on it, we go, well, history tells us that the idea of paying off the first house is flawed. Mm-hmm. Everyone in the old days used to say, my parents would say, pay off your house first, then you can go out and borrow. And look, that's more stable and more risk averse. Sometimes you have got to make a risk. Sometimes you get it wrong. I've got it wrong. I've had a few occasions where I've got it wrong. But if you're not in there playing the game, you're not going to win. You might lose occasionally, but you've got to play the game and have a few irons in the fire that if you go well, you make a squillion. If you go badly, well, okay, let's manage that. And I do talk about that in my book, about people that have got it wrong and that have gone emotional about it. And then they pull their head in, they say, oh, I was never meant to be wealthy. Woe is me. I'm going to retire on a pension. And it's not the way to be. Mm-hmm. There's one entrepreneur I work with at the moment, probably worth about 100, maybe a bit more, million. Been bankrupt twice. So he takes risks, and he goes for it. And sometimes he gets it right, sometimes he doesn't. And sometimes we've got to deal with some tax issues and the tax office lose out. Bad luck. But you've got to play the game, Aaron. And honestly, well, how do they get it wrong? Maybe they follow the crowd off the cliff. Maybe they listen to too many people who don't know the right answers. In my book, I talk about a strategy of buying one property every 5 years. When I went to Brisbane, I actually jumped in and bought a lot at the same time. Yeah, but that was another matter because I had a feeling about what was happening.
Yep.
And, you've got to follow that instinct. At different stages of your life, when you're younger, you probably should only be buying 1 or 2 at a time and starting to build up as you get older, and as your income starts to go up. So there's no one shoe fits all, and there's no one strategy. But can I tell you, you need to act. Yeah. Do not sit on the fence. Do not procrastinate.
Spot on.
Do not look back and say, I wish I'd have bought that. Oh, I saw that house, but I didn't buy it because it was blah, blah, blah. 5 years later, you look at it and go, my God, I wish I'd have bought that. I'd have been retiring now.
Mate, great. I should have bought 2 of those. And that's pretty much every regret. Everything you've said there, when I speak to investors like yourselves that have been around for a few cycles, there's 2 regrets. I should have bought more when I had the chance, and I shouldn't have sold out when I did. And I hear that resonate with what you're saying as well. if you're a newer, younger investor into the journey, this is sage wisdom that's coming out of experienced investors. So pick it up. If you're on the journey, look at your scenario, look at the strategies that we put out potentially to our clients and have a chat to go, yes, I know cash flow might get a bit tight, but your future self will absolutely thank you for taking action and getting into the market. Given that where we are in 2025, I've said it before, this market is taking off. The government is giving everyone a free kick.
Yes.
Like COVID, the entire country will be on the up with the first time owner grants that are coming out and the price points that typically investors are getting at as well. So we'll come back to that. But I think when you talk about the game, and again, investors, if you want a different perspective, listen to my wife, Bernadette, our podcast that we put out as well, where we talk about this having a little bit more gamification behind it. It's snakes and ladders. And I can see this, mate, with my 7 and 5-year-old. When we play snakes and ladders, they love going up the the ladder. And as soon as they get a snake, mate, they chuck a little tantrum. I've got to go, that's life. And it's a cafe that we go to every Sunday. We play at the game. And I say, as soon as you go down, I don't want to hear crying. It's part of the game. Accept it and move on. And I think we've got to teach people a little bit of resilience that comes to property investing. Tenants damaging a property, properties that needs repairs and maintenance, tax bills that come when you sell a property. They may be snakes, but they are part of the game. And if you don't like it, or paying strata, if you don't like it, then don't sign up for the game.
Agree.
Yeah. Because I don't tell you, mate, look, I'm a Mike. We came here when I was 2, Alan, and I recently went to Hong Kong. And you want to talk about housing markets being diabolical? Just go to Hong Kong. But I look at it going, our family can come here in the 80s, and now I'm in 2025, and within one generation, so maybe one decade of investing in property, I can change the entire trajectory of my family's future. And that, I've got to tell you, not only in business, but in property investing, the two together, that stuff blows my mind that this country allows people to come in, and the amount of migrants that I deal with that have bought properties within 10 years and changed the entire trajectory of we're not even talking about the ultra high net worth that you're dealing with. We're talking about everyday Australians that are able to come. This is a level playing field when it comes to a country. I got to tell you guys, if you don't realize what a blessing you have to buy real estate in this country, you are missing an absolute trick.
Exactly. And there's so many nurses, policemen, just average workers who are on 40, 50, 100,000 a year who have 10 and 15 properties.
Correct.
And they're going, I don't want to be a policeman all my life.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in hospitality or whatever. So they bought one property, bought another. And I know getting on that first rung of the ladder is difficult. And I talk about that in my book about how to break through the poverty trap, how to break through. But it's like a snowball going down the hill. Once you build that momentum, you get one or two, the values start to go up. You've then got your gearing and the ability to buy more. And it is a game. You've got to not shy away. And sometimes you'll get it wrong. I bought a unit when I was 21,500, Wiley Park in Sydney.
Yeah.
And I sold it probably 4 years later, 21,500. You know, so it was like, that wasn't great, but I lived there. It was somewhere to live, of course. And, but I bought property, 25,000 property I bought in Earl. We sold it for 90 and bought in Belrose, Forest Way. And you've got to be in that game. And sometimes there are other reasons too that you might need to sell, like family and other. If you go into a business and it starts to lose money, you've got to prop it up in some way. Most people in business have had that.
Yep.
But Australia is, as you say, a country where things are fairly level. You know that you're going to have the up, the down, the cycle, and it'll be flat for a little while, and then go like that, flat. So, exactly right, Aaron.
No, I love it. Thanks very much. As an accountant, mate, you get to see it all. And I say you and I probably have some of the best seats in the houses when it comes to looking at people's portfolios. Yeah. And What do you think most accountants get wrong when it comes to property investment?
I, I think they get a bit too conservative,
Oh, yeah,
and
well said.
they get too negative. They're worried about being sued because they think, oh, if I advise this person to do that and it goes sour, and this person's not a nice person, something and doesn't understand that.
Mm,
I could put that differently, Aaron, but anyway,
yeah.
and I think, oh, my kids, so I better be negative. If I'm negative, then it won't matter. But the problem is that you can't pass that negativity on to your clients all the time. Um, I've got clients that love me. I've got clients that I've made them 10 and $20 million because I've said, well, why don't we do this strategy? And why don't we start buying and doing this? I've got a client that's got probably $15-20 million portfolio in investment in commercial property. And he came to me and he said, I've got a few $1,000,000 over. I thought, how did you get $3 million? How did you get that? I don't know about that, but anyway, that's another question. And I said, well, what are you looking to do? What can we do? And I just said, well, look, this is what I've done, and this is what I think. And he thought about it, and he's got like a 15 million portfolio, commercial property yield, 600,000 a year net income. Owes the bank about, I think about 6 million or something, can't remember off the top of my head. But on top of that, we've been able to use that structure for other things. And you'd be surprised, you don't see it, but you'd be surprised sometimes how you can. So in that example, he put money in. So now he wants to buy a nice big house, a $9 million house somewhere.
Yeah, nice.
He sold his house for 4, and he needs to bridge that gap. And I said, well, the trust owes you some money. Let's work to get that money up. The trust can borrow that money, tax deductible, pay you back, and then you can use that money to buy a bigger and better house, which he's doing and done at the bank. When I spoke to the bank said, oh, yeah, I understand what you're doing. I get it. I get it. Because we wanted to get a tax deduction for that extra couple of mil that he needed for the new house that his wife wanted to get. So it's again structuring. So when you have the ability to remold something, and later on we'll talk about the difference between the rich and the poor and the mindset. And there is a mindset, and it's the ability to take a transaction and restructure it in a way that will be more tax effective. Why? Well, one reason might be that you're sick of the government paying out all this money for social welfare. Do you know, our economy at the moment is nearly 30% of GDP is government spending.
Yeah, I've seen that.
30%.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Back in the Whitlam days, when everyone said, oh, the government's spending far, far too much, it was 19% or 18%. It's now 1/3 of the whole of our economy is government spending.
Yep.
So Kerry said, and I worked for him at the time, Kerry said, you're not spending our money that wisely that I should donate any extra. And as he stirred his cup of tea, and the Senate guy just, it's just like, he was bewildered. He said, I'm not donating any extra. And if you suspect that I'm minimising my tax, well, yes, I'm minimising my tax, but I'm not avoiding tax in any shape or form. I pay the right amount of tax. And every time you bring out a new law, how about delete the old law? You create a minefield. The government creates a minefield of laws. And for people like us, it's easy for me because, it's my profession, what I'm in, but create a minefield. So how does the average person manage that minefield and go, well, hang on, I'm going to buy a new house. It's going to cost me an extra $3 million. How can I do that tax effectively? How can I restructure? And in some cases, you can. In some cases, the onus is put back on me, if you like, to come up with how I can do that. And sometimes there are solutions. Like I just said, this trust owns a lot of property. It owes the beneficiaries quite a bit of money. So the trust went out and borrowed more money, paid back the beneficiary loans. Nothing wrong with that.
It's spot on. I think it comes down to the nous, so the actual intelligence of your accountant to know that there is one meeting that I do not miss every year, and it's our tax planning meeting that we have with our accountant. It probably sits in maybe April, May, tax year end. We are doing all the planning around what are we doing for this year, how the book's looking. I mean, we will meet periodically throughout the year, but that is one meeting that I will never miss because of how important it is. That meeting will make or break me. And I am surprised / perplexed / annoyed when I hear people say, my accountant goes to ground. We don't really get that proactive support. And people are willing to accept that, Allan. And that's probably something I'm like, if you're willing to accept that, then that's on you.
Yeah. Look, I often get people say, "Can you take over my work?" And sometimes I won't. It's not a right fit. And they say, "Oh, can you recommend somebody?" And to be honest, I had trouble with that. I don't know anyone that thinks the way I think.
Correct.
That is proactive. I'm close to my clients. My clients have been with me for over 20 years. And they look at me, and I know their situation. Other clients that have come on board in the last few years, and they tell me they're blown away. I had a Div 7A issue, I don't know if you know what that is, with a client, and I looked at it, and I thought, this is crazy. And I rang the client. I said, you've got massive Div 7A issues. I said, yeah, no, we understand. Previous account could work out what to do. I solved it, and they were like, they're actually blown away. They said to me, I cannot believe someone's done what we've done. And I just looked at all the different structures. We're talking probably 20 entities in the group. So I needed to spreadsheet them and get my head around and think about it and go away and whatever. But that's the difference. And when you in business, you need to be like that, and you need to question the status quo. And Aaron, I always tell my clients, tell me what you're doing. If you're going to buy and sell something, like you don't want to create a capital gain in a year you've got a big profit. Let's move the gain into the next year if we can.
Yeah.
Or let's prepay a year's interest on one of my other rental properties to extinguish that capital gain on that property I needed to sell because it wasn't quite right for my right fitting portfolio. So let's be intelligent about this, because if you're dumb, sorry to use that word, if you're dumb about it, you'll end up contributing. And can I tell you, I have never yet seen the treasurer send a thank you card to any client who's had to pay a large tax bill. Never once. They've sent a thank you card. Do you know what they do? They don't send a thank you card. They send a PAYG installment for the next quarter. It's basing it on the previous quarter. And then if you don't pay it within a certain period, they actually ring you now. Wow. They have been on the phone. You're 2 weeks late with your BAS. They ring. And it's like, hang on, give me a chance, guys. So they're not going to thank you. You've got to look after yourself, your family, look after yourself, and do it all correctly, because you don't want to spend free time in Wagga Road jail. So you need to do it correctly.
No, nicely said. Nicely said. I think we'll talk about tax, and I've mentioned before, paying tax is a success fee. Obviously, as incomes go up, you earn more, there is more tax to be paid. Now, there's ways to be tax efficient. There's ways to be tax effective. And then most people live in a land of tax minimization, which generally what I find is you can just shoot yourself in the foot from a borrowing capacity perspective. To your point, Allan, when you're not having that conversation with your accountant going, here's what we'd like to do next. And that is the first question our accountant is going, right, what's the game plan around your property acquisitions? What's your game plan around paying off your home loan, in a certain time period as well? And what are we doing from an investment perspective? Perfect. We lay it all out on the table. Here's the entities. Here's where we're going to map it out. I don't know how many bloody entities we're up to at the moment. I've lost count, but it's a good thing our accountant, someone like yourself, with that really proactive accountant is going, give me your strategy and let's then work retrospectively to fit it into the right piece. Because you're right, mate. The amount of accounts that are probably leaving dollars on the table with trusts, companies, profit distributions, and all they're saying to their clients is, let's minimize the tax, and that's how the accountant will earn their stripes. I got to tell you, it's such a poor show. It's like a broker saying, I'll get you the lowest rate, as opposed to how many properties can you build and fit into your portfolio. And yeah, if that's the litmus test for your very account, I think you need to recheck the strategy that you have instead of going, how can I minimize my tax? Is how can I build a big property as possible? So quality, not quantity, is what I'm advocating for. But mate, you mentioned, I mean, you just casually dropped Kerry Packer's name into the conversation as well. For those that don't know, you had a good career, which means working for the big guy as well. So take me through what's been your career journey, and then kind of how did you cross paths with the late great Kerry Packer?
I've been in practice, then I've been in commerce, and back into practice. When I was in commerce, to be frank, I applied for the position inside of the press, and Kerry's right-hand man, and then Kerry interviewed me, and he said to me, son, you need to be worth double what I pay you. And I thought to myself, oh, yes, Dad. No, I didn't say that. Big guy, you would say that. But it makes you think. And that was fairly early in my career. I was probably in my 30s. And it made you think about adding value and being proactive and thinking about ways to do things. So, I was involved in the printing publishing side. I've set up my printing complex at the side of the business. And we had a client come to us to print their diaries, in fact. And I looked at it, and I looked at the company. It's a large order, of course. And the salespeople, okay, got to do this, great job. And I looked at it and the company, and I'm looking at the financials, and I said, no, we can't do this. We will lose our money, and I wouldn't approve it. I said, we just can't. But I had a good look at it. I went down to the factory, company come to us. And I went down to the factory, had a good look at it, I had a bit of a chat to them, and they were like trying to agree to give them credit. It would have been about $500,000 credit, which we'd have lost, I'll tell you now. And I looked at it and I thought, this is interesting. So I went back and I did some numbers, and I thought, I spoke to the MD out at Offset, and I said, Ron, I think this would be a good acquisition. We should consider this. We should buy this business and get it at a song because they're on their knees. If we don't print for them, nobody else will. So I went through all the numbers. I sat with Kerry. I put it all up on the whiteboard, and I worked out that what I think we should pay, we would get back in a year. And Kerry was like, you sure? I said, yep, I'm sure. 30-year-old, it's like, I'm sure. And he said, okay, we'll go for it. And we did. We bought it. And that acquisition paid for itself in about 6 months.
Awesome.
It's still part of Offset Alpine Printing. And Kerry backed it. Kerry was like very supportive, and he listened, and he was like, well, I agree. It'll be a good acquisition fit within Offset Alpine's structure. And so let's do it. So he was like that. And when you think being worth double your money, well, an accountant, am I going to save tax, or am I going to help the client grow their wealth, or am I going to be proactive? And my guys ring me from time to time. We chat, have lunch, and we just work as people. Like when I'm talking to somebody, like one of my guys that just did something on share sale. Again, he was like, I couldn't believe it. And it's like, mate, it's just unbelievable. And we just talk normal. Like we're talking guys with 50, 100 more million and that. I never have a problem with that. Never have. Always first name basis. Maybe that's me. Kerry was always Kerry. It's just my life and my career, and I've always related to that, and those sort of people have always come to me, and are always very respectful, mainly because I'm honest about it. I go through and just say, this is what we need to be doing, let's work together, and usually it works, to be honest.
Yeah, nice. Thanks very much. And then I guess from a property perspective, I know that you've built your portfolio up to a sizable amount. What's that journey been like for yourself, and how did you go about scaling?
I've just continued to buy and buy. I mean, in the past, as I've said, if I'd have kept everything, I bought a block of units once at Campsie, and I bought it, and I say this often, don't do it for tax, but I did it for tax. It was about April, May, and I was facing a large tax bill that year, and I thought, how am I going to solve this? So I actually employed a girl. You're going to laugh about this. I employed a girl to go around and look at all these old blocks of units and try and see what I could buy. Actually knocked on doors and all this kind of thing, what I could buy. Because I wanted to prepay a year's interest and buy a block of units like at Strata. That was my game plan. And that's what I did, actually. So I actually eliminated the tax for that year. I can't remember what year it was. I bought the block of units, paid a year's interest in advance, so I borrowed. I had no tax debt for that year and cleaned it out. And again, being proactive, thinking ahead, going, oh, what's this year going to look like? What am I doing this year? So this year, for instance, 26 tax year, I will have a capital gain in the 26 tax year. So I'm now thinking how I'll structure that. So I won't have a problem with it. So I'm always thinking ahead. For example, my 2025 tax returns, personally, all done, lodged, paid. And I do that in July. I do my own personal stuff in July. I've usually got it worked out May, April, May, June. I've all drafted up and I'm working through anything extra I might need to do, like prepay something in advance, or do something. I'll do that in June to manage what needs to be done. And I tell clients to do the same. It's monkey see, monkey do. I never tell anybody to do something that I would not do myself.
Well said.
Well
said. I think that's just good hygiene. The amount of times that we get clients that haven't done their financials for 18 months, they're waiting for the last, in March or something, for that last minute to get it in. I was like, why? Why are we waiting? And you got to pay the tax at some point, for example, to get it over and done with, get the financials lodged, and let's crack on. For example, if the financials are great, let's use them to borrow more money.
And you do need them. How many times do you need, like the client at the moment, just buying a new house, and he said, "Oh, I need all the draft financials." And I said, "Oh, I knew you were buying a new house. So I've already got half done. It'll be finished today." And I went talking about 6 or 7 entities. So my girls are on it. I've got 3 girls that work for me. So we're onto it, and it's being a little bit proactive. I hate last minute. I was involved with a practice in Melbourne. Everything was last minute. If there wasn't a last minute day, nothing would get done. And it was like stress. I don't want that.
Right, great. There's reactive businesses and there's the proactive. The reactive is literally just putting fires out all day. I see it in broking land. You probably see it in accounting land, for example. It's like literally just in time type methodology. I'm like, man, we've got all this time. We have all this time. Why are we not getting organized? It's the same when people buy without pre-approvals. Does our head in, for example. Why on earth would you do something without being organized? It speaks volumes about the person or the professional. It's like, hey, mate, use that time to your advantage. Get organized. Stop leaving things to the last minute, and everyone will have a much more enjoyable experience.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Awesome. Mate, in here, and again, my research I've done for you, SMSFs have become, part of your specialist skill set, part of your repertoire. Tell us more, because I feel like this is the one area that people leave a lot on the table with opportunity as well. So tell me, what is so special about investing through an SMSF, and what do people need to be aware of as well?
Exactly. So in business world, you've got trusts, companies, sole trader, and superannuation. Now, people sometimes forget about the super side of things. And superannuation is a different playing field, because 2 things. One is the tax rate in a super, at accumulation mode is 50%. That's in an individual, it's 45%. So a lot lower tax rate. On capital gains, the tax rate is 10%. When it's in pension mode, and pension mode is not that difficult to be in. You just need to retire from employment or source of income. You need to reach preservation age, generally 60. And it means that all those properties you've got in the super fund now become tax-free, now become capital gains tax-free. So you might have accumulated something in there that paid 100,000, now with 500. Tax-free. But look, it's not a one shoe fits all. I look at it and step back sometimes and think, will a super fund suit a situation? Sometimes I like, because the super fund it's got to be able to pay its own bills. And the only income that can go into a super fund is contributions, either concessional or non-concessional, up to various caps. So there are caps and limits on what you put in. So, and you might not have that tax-free income within the non-concessional cap to help subsidise any shortfall. So you've just got to be a little bit careful. But that doesn't mean you ignore it. I mean, as you get older, and I know, Aaron, you're only 25 and I'm 45, so we're not nowhere near that pension phase. Let's add about 20 years to that, mind you. But anyway,
absolutely.
When it gets to pension mode, it's a whole new ballgame. You've got, and my super fund, it's actually doing really well. I've got some various investments making 15 to 20% return. I just sold a unit. I thought I'd put into the share market earlier this year. I had no debt on that unit. I just paid it off, and had a gain of about $300,000-400,000 on that, zero tax. I sold a practice, and I rolled the gain on that into a super fund, tax free. I had a building that was owned partly by my super fund, partly by me, unit trust, and I was a bit creative about that, how that would be handled and work, and tax free again. So that it's a vehicle, and it's just part of the number of things you can do in business. Trusts, companies, sole trader, super. Don't leave it out. Think about it. And it also becomes an each way bet. So what I mean by that is an each way bet is putting a little bit aside that if your business goes run a bit foul in your business, and things happen, you've got to sell, pay off some debt. You've still got, or you're going to go bankrupt for some reason, or you need to do a Phoenix somewhere, and there's legal and illegal Phoenixes. So it's often you do a legal Phoenix. Where you've got to restructure yourself. And you want to keep a little bit of that nesting aside that it's not going to be taxed. And I talked about entrepreneurs that might go broke 2 or 3 times in their lifetime, they're worth $100 million. So these things happen. You're playing the game, and sometimes you need to get cut off, sometimes not. So you've got to just think about that.
Yeah, nicely said. Thanks very much. It's like you said, people leaving things on the table, maybe through just a lack of knowledge, or their team's lack of expertise and experience, for example, as well. So this is an itch you're trying to scratch. Let me just say something. There's one lender that's come out, 90% no LMI in SMSF. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy what I've seen at the moment. We're splitting deposits, going buying two good assets, for example, as well. Yes, the tax landscape is different in super versus out. So have a think about it. We're not giving tax advice in this episode, but yeah, having a bit of knowledge and awareness opens up the conversation as well. Mate, I'm going to ask you a personal question. I think we're up to, what is this, book number 10 for you?
So yes.
Yeah, book number 10. Got a decent property portfolio. I want to ask what maybe some people are thinking, going, Allan, where's the Lambo or Ferrari, for example? And why are you still working? And I can almost preempt the answer, but I want to hear it from you.
I enjoy it. I have a team. I find it very easy, to be honest. I love working with my clients and pull a rabbit out of the hat. It makes you feel fantastic. I'm just about to buy a new SL63.
Beautiful.
So I did think of a Lambo. One of my clients has got 3 Lambos, and I drove one of them a bit. It's kind of not the car for me. I've had Porsches, and I've had a lot of cars in my time. I had an E-Type when I worked for Kerry, and courtesy of in those days didn't have fringe benefit tax. But part of my parcel was to have that E-Type fully restored, and all the guys at Soda Press had a lot of cars, so we had a lot of things in common. Kerry had a twin turbo XJS,
nice,
green monster. So it's fun, and I don't know how long I will continue. I don't know, but at the moment I'm really enjoying it. And I'm actually good at running a business. I delegate extremely well, and that makes it easy. And I enjoy writing. I have an idea for another book, which I should probably take me a couple of years to write, which is a little bit of my idea is like a mobster trying to clean up his act and become legitimate, and how we do that with various tax havens.
I love it.
That will be a book of fiction.
Yeah, nice.
It will be fiction. It won't be non-fiction. These are non-fiction. These are what books I've written so far are absolute fact, but this will be fiction.
Nice.
And that was my idea. And I was thinking, good, because people talk about tax havens and things like that. And of course, I've been involved with a lot of that. But they don't really work that well. And you've got to be careful because Australia, you're taxed on worldwide income. So you just need to be careful where you oversold.
Thanks, man.
But I thought I'd write a non-fiction book on that.
Good on you.
Oh, fiction book on that, I should say.
Yeah. I can say, I guess I've been around authors. I mean, I've written my own book, and I think there's a game respects game. And I think for me, what I see is when people just love what they do, the riches, the toys, that's not the reason they stop. It comes on the journey, but it's like the more impact that I can have, the bigger I call it the ripple effect gets, where now this, I see this at the airport. I probably wouldn't, our paths may not have crossed. And I suddenly look at your books and I'm like, mate, you're talking to self-employed people. You're talking to property investors. You're talking about mindset, for example, like the impact that you're still able to have by leaving a lasting legacy with your clients. For example, I'm sure your clients, kids, grandkids, great-grandkids become beneficiaries of the advice that you're giving them. So to me, where I want to leave this goal, where I want to lead this conversation is to go, if you aren't having someone in your team that is determined to make a massive impact, aside from aligning their pockets or their bank account, have a think about the team that you've got on board with you as well. Because a heart-centered business like what you have, I dare say like what we have, where we're a family type business, but we employ a great team as well. I don't have aspirations of retiring. I do not want to even think about it. I'm like, I just want to keep working bloody hell to the day I drop dead, have some work-life balance in there, be a great role model for my kids. But the more people we can help, the bigger the impact gets. Mate, isn't that a fantastic outcome?
Exactly. And you touched on the ripple effect. The last chapter of my book talks about the ripple effect. And it is something that in business and society, I see it. I see it when, and I've seen it many times, when the right person goes into a company, into a business, the change that it affects. And I've seen it when I've taken over businesses. We don't have to sing accolades, obviously know what we're doing.
Yeah.
I've seen the difference it makes to have the right leader and the right person that throws that stone in the water. That ripple goes out across the pond. It's the same in business. And I know they're metaphors, but they are correct. And in your business, Aaron, and in the team you have around you, and the teams that I've had around me, and yes, sometimes we get it wrong, but in most cases, we get it right.
Yep.
And if we have a good team, you don't need to look at retiring. You've got the support, everyone on the same wavelength, and you can achieve a difference.
All right, well said. There's one last thing that I just want to touch on, which is investing in different decades. And I've spoken about the power of a decade. Bernie and I have spoken about power of decades as well. So investing in your 20s, low income, high risk tolerance. As you get on in time, and I see it, couples in their 40s, maybe 50s going high incomes, low risk tolerance. They go, we don't want to risk what we've built. And it's like, hang on, this is the time maybe to double down heading into retirement. How does someone shift this mindset to go, what served me in my 20s and 30s, I've got to relook at that. I've got to change the game because it's slightly different as well.
I suppose the only way you can do it is say, if you start on the path you're on now, this is what you're going to look like at 65. And this is what income you're going to have. And is that acceptable or not? And if we can't change your mindset, and remember, I'm not looking at investments. I'm not looking at telling people how to invest. I'm the accountant. But we do talk about these things. And people look at me and they go, oh, what should I do? Because they're looking to lead an example. So in my book, I mentioned 3 scenarios for somebody in that age group. They own their house. What should they do? And I paint the pictures. I think it's Mr. Black, Mr. White, Mr. Red or something, I think it was. And of a strategy that you could employ. And I projected out, if you did nothing and you owned your house in Sydney, I think you said, for $2 million, and you did nothing, what would that look like at the end of another 15 years, 45, 50? What would that look like when you're retiring? Versus, well, hang on, maybe I should do strategy A, B, or C. And if I did that, what would that difference be? And I've done all those projections. The financial planning group that I work with that look after my portfolio, Wilson's, that look after my share portfolio for the super fund, I had them run through X-Plan, all of these massive projections. And they were projections coming, and I had to put reading into that. And I said, well, let's take growth of 3.5%. And let's take inflation, blah, blah. Run those through X-Plan and tell me what that result will be. And that's what I did. And I cut and pasted and I played with those tables. And all those tables you see there came out of X-Plan, plus some of my calculations, of course. And you've got to change your mindset. So if you're a mouse on a wheel doing the same thing over and over again, you're not going to get a different result. So someone in their 40s and 50s, the risk averse, they go, well, I'm out of here. I'm set, paid my house off. That's it. What does that look like in 20 years, 15 years? You need to show them. And they go, oh, okay. I better think again.
Yeah.
And that's what I've done.
Thanks very much. I think there's a level of discomfort that comes with going, hey, mate, we've got to still keep investing as well. But if you do nothing, you're going to get nothing. And sometimes, yeah, like you said, it might be imperfect action, but we've said it before, the property market rewards action takers and decision makers as well. And I want to leave that there on that note, let that kind of simmer and percolate. Alan, I've got to say, mate, this book, I couldn't stop. It's very easy to read, very easy to read. Like you said, leave emotion at the door, which is a very hard thing to do. So I say, even if you sprinkle a little bit of emotion into your investing journey, along with some ration and some numbers, I think you'll come out of this with a healthy mindset in terms of here's how I can invest and here's how I can get some success out of my portfolio. Can I hit you up? Can we get a couple of copies out to some listeners? Is that possible?
Yeah, sure. I'll send those to you.
Great.
Get someone to I've got your address. But,
yeah.
I'll send those to you. And send
Fantastic.
Them out. You send them out as prizes if you like.
Mate, that's what we love. Yeah, we love.
A few questions and then give them out as a prize.
That's exactly what we do, buddy. So yeah, if you've listened and you love the episode, there's two ways. Drop us a DM, or you can go into our website. The little pop-up at the bottom will appear. Just put in what you loved about this episode. Give us your address, most importantly, so we can send you out a copy, and we'll probably somewhere 5-10 copies we'll shoot out to some listeners who have got a lot out of this episode. I've always mentioned as well, people that want to be part of the Property Accelerator, you've got to hit us up. We meet second Wednesday of every month online, and it's a community of property investors that want to play a bigger game. And if that's you, we'd love for you to be part of the journey as well. And if anything that you've resonated, let us know in the comments as well. We love to get your feedback on every episode. Alan, I want to say thank you so much for your energy. Thanks for your time as well, mate. Genuinely appreciate it.